And good evening and welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce a brand new guest to the program. To say there's an affiliation with Mitchell College, and hence my cap for the evening. And I'd like to welcome Cam Pilger, who's the head men's soccer coach at Mitchell College, and welcome to City Focus.
Thanks for having me, Marty. Good to be here.
All righty. We have a little commonality here. I met him a handful of months ago at where I work at Ace Hardware. He came in and he was wearing some Mitchell garb, and we got yakking a little bit about the school and what he does. And I said, well, I thought you'd make a great guest on the program. And finally, we managed to pull him in. But he's got an Ace affiliation. So when I looked over your background, you've got 10 years with Ace Hardware. So
yeah. 10 plus years at Fowles Hardware, West Hartford, Connecticut. No longer Fowles Hardware, it's now Larson's Ace Hardware. But yeah, a little mom and pop hardware store, one of the best jobs I ever had. Might have learned more about coaching there than anywhere else, to be honest. So one of the best jobs I've ever had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I also note that you're come from a family of soccer. Your father's is a coach, and your other siblings are players and coaches, and so you're not the apple I close to the tree, as they say.
Yeah, tried to roll away from the tree at a time, but ended up rolling back towards the tree. So here I am in coaching. My dad, almost a lifelong Division III college soccer coach, most recently at Trinity College. Coached a little professional in there, but yeah, bounced. Yeah. He's it's a soccer family through. So yes, you say it well. The apple did not fall from the tree. My brother most recently was an assistant at Keene State University.
Okay,
Up in New Hampshire. Up in New Hampshire. He's taken. He is technically on our Mitchell staff, even though he works remotely now from Portland, Maine. Head scout, does all the scouting reports on our opponents, and really actually gives us a big advantage, I think, against our opponents. So my brother Charlie is a real asset to our team now.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
Now, you assumed this position in August of 22, and soccer's a fall sport.
Yes.
So it didn't give you a heck of a lot of time to kind of prepare, get to know your team, and kind of figure out what's going on. So maybe you can kind of give us a little bit of a synopsis on starting on the fly.
Sure. Yeah, I was all geared up to go back for preseason at University of St. Joseph's, where I was an assistant.
That's up in West Hartford.
In West Hartford, correct. Had a great team there, loved that team. It was really hard to step away, but got the offer from Mitchell. Thank God Zoom has become a big thing in recent years, because was able to at least see our guys face to face, about a week before we all came in, and got to work together, and all things considered, ended up having a pretty good year. So yes, that went very well.
Now, your initial season, as I look at your schedule, you finished out at 6-10-1.
Correct.
And in the conference, 2-4, did well at home, 5-3. A little more challenging out on the road. Is that typical of soccer, having home field advantage, or not necessarily so?
Definitely can be a huge advantage. Soccer's, I guess there are some sports that have different size fields, but soccer is a big one. It can vary in length of the field, it can vary in width, and then with the ball being on the ground so often, the surface plays a big role. So we're really thankful to have one of the nicer fields in the region, brand new turf that we love. We really love playing on it. Lets us play a particular style at home. When we go away to certain fields, particularly if you go into Boston or turf fields in inner cities or turf fields that share the field with football, you find that the surface is kind of like this table, and you have to kind of change your game plan around that. So, next year we'll look to be a little bit better on the road. Another thing, our schedule was really tough on the road. We had a much more difficult away schedule than home schedule, which is going to be the opposite for next year. So hopefully we can maintain.
Well, you're changing conferences.
Correct.
Share where you were and where you're going.
Sure. So we were in the NECC. That included us, Leslie, Eastern Nazarene, and New England College. Thanks to the amazing work by our athletic directors, Matt Finlayson, Kim Gamar-Harvey, and Todd Peretz. They got us into the GNAC, Great Northeast Conference. And
that compromises who?
Okay. It's a long list.
That's good.
On the men's side, let me see how many we can do. It's got us now. In Connecticut, you have University of St. Joseph's, Albertus Magnus in New Haven, Johnson & Wales in Rhode Island. Massachusetts, there's quite a few. You've got Elms, Emmanuel, LaSalle.
Emmanuel and LaSalle, right? Oh, one's in Boston, one's right outside of Boston.
Emmanuel's in Boston, just outside. Regis is just outside, and Anna Maria is right in that same area, in that Worcester region. New England College, Colby Sawyer, Norwich Academy up in Vermont.
That's a haul.
That's a haul. That's a long one. And I think St. Joe's of Maine. I've got most of them. Sorry if I forgot one of those teams. But yeah, it's going to be a much bigger conference next year, which should make for a really exciting season.
And the level of competition will be a little stiffer across the board?
For sure. The top end is very strong in men's soccer and in a lot of the sports. So, the top teams last year, University of St. Joe's, Connecticut was the winner. Previous years, St. Joe's of Maine has been a powerhouse. Norwich is always excellent. Johnson & Wales is always excellent. Albertus have really built a great team. Emmanuel, another great team. So it's going to be a challenge, but we're really excited for that.
Okay. Now, last year you assumed your prior coach's squad.
Correct.
So this year you've got some of your own recruits.
Yes.
And how many gentlemen will play on your make your team? I mean, do people walk on, or do they all recruits? Where do you get your players?
Sure. Most are going to be recruits. We had a couple of players this past year. I inherited a pretty small roster. We were floating around 16 or 17 players when I initially got there. That's way too small for a soccer team.
How many are on the field?
Sure. 11, and one of those is a goalkeeper, which is a very specific position. So 10 field, one goalkeeper, and you need to be able to make substitutions in a sport like soccer where you're going to run, miles and miles every game. So that's hugely important to have a team. And just in practice, you want to be able to play a real soccer game. So that requires at least 22 players, and you want to have some subs in that game too. So, my ideal number floats around 26, 27, 28, just so you don't have too many unhappy players, but you have enough to really train and make it competitive. So we're going to be close to that, if not above that, next year.
Okay. Now the team you inherited had an abundance of Connecticut players. And I would say a significant amount of players from Eastern and Southeastern Connecticut, and there's 4 listed from New London in particular. Mm-hmm. So I kind of pay attention to that as a New London guy.
Yeah, absolutely. One, Flavio Alvarado, New London high school kid, one of our second leading scorer last year, 6 goals. Just a great kid. He's going to be a great sophomore for us. So, but yeah, we do have a lot of local players on the team. That was more the recruiting philosophy and style of the previous coaching team. For whatever reason, we've found more success recruiting outside of this region. Although we do have, I believe, hopefully, can't say his name yet because he's not fully committed, but we should have at least one New London High player coming in again for next season. But most of our recruits have been outside Connecticut.
For this upcoming year.
Correct.
You still have, I would think, a significant amount of players that have rolled over from here, or they opted to move on with the new running the team.
No, we just graduated quite a few, actually. So 6 graduated, which left us, we did inherit a couple of athletes from the school, some of which are trained soccer players, some of which are just good athletes that wanted to help us out and be great team guys, which we're super thankful for. But, at the end of the year, we're sitting about 30 So we need to have a really big recruiting class. I think by the end it could be about 16 players coming in for next season, though.
So how do you reach your potential recruits? I mean, I would think in season would be challenging for you to see these youngsters play because you've got your own team to deal with.
Yes.
And practicing or games or traveling games and things of that nature. So is it done by remote or by film or by assistants visiting and recruits, or do youngsters come to you saying, I'm interested in Mitchell, your program looks pretty sharp and I'd like to be a part of it?
Yeah.
Or they like the school academically?
Yeah, some of that. I guess the best answer to that question is yes, all of those things. There's a bunch of avenues to be recruited in schools nowadays. In the fall, a big component is going to high school games. We trained pretty early in the morning last year, which, good for me, won't be the case this next year, but that's what the previous regime had set up, so we had to inherit that. So we trained at 7 in the morning. That allowed me and my assistant coaches to go out to quite a few high school soccer games in the fall. So we saw hundreds of players in person in the fall, maybe thousands of players in person in the fall. Some of those are now coming to Mitchell. But then, as the winter moves, we move into the winter season, players start to play indoors, which I don't find as useful to go watch indoor soccer games. It's such a different sport indoors than it is outdoors. So then we shift to film quite a bit. There's databases out there. NCSA, field level are two that are big, where you can search thousands of players from all around the country and the world. A lot of them have, video footage, what they want to major in, if they're interested in small schools or big schools, they can really build a profile for themselves that lets us really, filter kind of good results for us. And we found tons of players just through that. And now in this day and age, even social media has become a factor. Our Instagram page is a big, kids see our Instagram page and reach out to us. So certainly, to answer your original question, all of those are avenues that we explore to find players.
Now, often high school athletes have illusions that they're going to be the next Michael Jordan. And they're not. At what point, as they're kind of going through the process, do these youngsters figure out that they're not going to be players, or perhaps D2 for that matter, and they settle in and recognize that this is where they fit best, whether athletically? Let's leave it there. And that where you're getting students that want to be in your environment and understand what they're doing. I mean, they're not going to become pros. They're going to play soccer because they enjoy it. It's highly competitive, and D3 athletics is improving all the time. I mean, the quality of performance and play in the players in all sports getting better all the time.
Yeah, that's absolutely the truth. It is sometimes a hard realization for players, that maybe they're not going to go to that Division I or Division II school. But, we want those players that want to go to those levels. Division III, like you said, is improving all the time. I know many of our recruits and our current players could go play Division II, maybe even to certain Division I programs right now. And decided on Mitchell for, financial, proximity, all kinds of regions. Maybe they're a marine science major, and we have a great
much better place.
It's a pretty good spot to be a marine science guy. And a lot of the time, players will come to us if maybe they're just not quite ready to take that step. One great example we saw just in Connecticut, Patrick, I hope I say his last name right, Agamang, was a Division III athlete. He went to Eastern Connecticut State University, spent 2 years there, transferred to Providence College, or URI. Again, I should know that one, but not. But then he was just recently drafted 9th in the MLS draft.
Oh, boy.
So he's going to have a really bright career ahead of him. So you know, just because you're 18 years old and you think maybe you're not quite where you want to be, that doesn't mean there's still time to make those steps. We see tons of improvement, you know, in this 18 to 22-year-old range. I mean, not to use a pun, but boys become men at times, and they grow and get stronger, and you know, it's a great time for them to improve. And sometimes, you know, they can make that step to the professional level if they're dedicated and want to do that.
Well, that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
We were talking before we came on the air. You know, Mitchell has had a very proud tradition in soccer, right, going back to the 1960s when it was very, very high-end private junior college and two-year school, and they were able to field national championship caliber soccer squads.
Yeah.
You know, kind of, and also during the course of time, I mean, George Mara also had terrific women's basketball when they were a two-year school. I don't know if you were aware of that as well.
I didn't know that. No.
I mean, he was running out teams that were like UConn at that level. And
wow.
One of his players did go to UConn, Rita Williams.
There you go. Wow, I didn't know that. You're going to study up on some of my Mitchell history.
Well, you're new there, so there's time for you.
I'm working on it. But I did, as I told you before, you know, one of our soccer legends at Mitchell, Dean Roberts, is retiring this year. And I have a feeling, I still haven't confirmed, but this newspaper clipping from the last Mitchell College National Championship for men showed up just outside my office. So that's hanging in the office. You know, I would love to, you know, reach similar heights someday with Mitchell. I know our neighbors down the road, Connecticut College, did it a couple of years ago. So
well,
we'll see. You never know.
They won the national championship, correct?
They did.
That was 2 seasons ago.
2 seasons ago, correct. And they're in the NESCAC, which is really, it's the premier Division III soccer league in this country, I would say.
Really?
Yes, without a doubt. That's to your point about Division III before. You look at NESCAC teams and say they're pretty comparable with a lot of Division II and Division I schools. The quality of players that they get is truly incredible.
How about Coast Guard? They're in a different league, but they're
excellent. Chris Parsons has done an incredible job with that program. Honestly, when we played them this year, we couldn't get near them. They were a well-oiled machine, moved the ball around so well. We were happy we scored some goals on them. I think we were the first team in a calendar year to score any goals against Coast Guard. So we'll take that, even though we did lose that game. Yeah, Chris has done an incredible job with that program.
Yeah. Well, you know, as Mitchell has been making its way into D3 in all their athletics. I mean, it has not been smooth and seamless across the board. Different sports seem to have done a little bit better more quickly for whatever reasons. But the level of competition, and I enjoy watching our local schools play each other. I mean, I went to Mitchell after a long hiatus from Northeastern, and then matriculated to Con, so I went to both.
Okay.
And graduated from both. And Coast Guard, I've got a cousin who graduated from there and ended up as superintendent, so I've got to the academy as well. And I just think it's a good inner city rivalries between the three schools.
It's a beautiful thing. I tell all of our recruits, this is Division III soccer mecca, or Division III sports mecca, you could say, New London. 3 teams in town, or 3 colleges in town, all which have very competitive programs. Unfortunately, with our new GNAC schedule, we weren't able to schedule either next year.
Really?
I know. We have 14 conference games that we have to play, so only have 2 out-of-conference games to schedule. So I had to be a little more strategic with our schedule next year. But those are games that I would love to get back onto the schedule in our coming years.
Now, 14, does that, you only see your conference teams once?
Correct.
So you're not getting a home and home. It's like half your are home, half are on the road then.
Correct. There is talk of splitting it, which I hope they do not do. But there's talk of splitting the GNAC into a North and South division, in which case I think you'd play both team home and away each year, at least in soccer, where we only play about 16 games in our season. But for now, we're playing everybody, which is going to be really exciting. You know, you get to see everybody once. I tell people, you know, our soccer fans, it's like the Premier League, which is the big league in England. You're going to be watching the standings, the table every week. You know, if this team beats this team and this happens and they get a tie, we'll move into this position. It's for a really.
Well, I think it sounds exciting, and you're bringing a level of enthusiasm. I'm hoping will translate into your squad and will reflect that as well on the playing field.
That's what we hope for. That's what we hope for. I think we're bringing in a lot of talent, and we have an amazing group of returners. I think, you know, we can come into that league and be really surprising to a lot of schools next year.
Now, how much student support did you get last year for your games? Did you get many kids coming out to watch the team play?
I think it increased throughout the year. I think early on it wasn't so much. I mean, first I should say, Mitchell, we do a great job of team supporting other teams. You know, half the student body is athletes. So, you know, early season, I think everyone's a little tired from their preseason. But I think rumors started to go around Mitchell men's soccer as actually playing a pretty fun style of soccer, getting a lot of wins at home. By the end of the year, they were lining the whole sideline. The whole south sideline was just
Are there bleachers or just standing?
So we have a couple sets of small bleachers. Certainly something I'm hoping to, you know, do in the coming years is maybe get a little more seating for our fans, because we certainly get plenty. So that would be a great addition. But, you know, still a beautiful place to go. You can swing by Michael's Dairy, go down to the beach afterwards, make a day out of it. So, yeah, we got a lot of good turnouts last season.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't claim to be a soccer aficionado, but I have been to a handful of New England Revolution games over the course of time.
Really nice.
And through my affiliation with the Kiwanis Club, we were working with the Revolution at a New England level.
Oh, great.
Trying to promote our organization, and with that, doing group sales and things of that nature, and then they'd promote us at the stadium and things of that nature.
Yeah.
My goal was the Jimmy Fund type of affiliation that the Red Sox have. With,
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
We didn't quite reach that lofty goal, but we were trying.
Sure, you did a lot of good in the process too. That's awesome. That's awesome. New England Revolution, one of the best teams in the league coming up too. Former U.S. national team coach took that job, Bruce Arenas. So, you know, should be an exciting year for them.
So I mean, so it's been fun. Now, for the players, do they? Is this a year-round deal? Where I mean, you've got your season, but I hate to assume anything.
Yeah.
But that they got to come in some reasonable amount of shape. You just don't show up and play, at least not game ready. And then when the season's over, that they just don't stop and don't do it until 8 or 9 months later.
No.
So what's kind of the process and procedure, and what kind of skills and what kind of shape do these young men need to be in to be good soccer players? And I take it that different positions require different skill sets.
This is true. But certainly as a soccer player, you need to be fit and you need to be able to run. And some people say goalies don't really need to, but, you know, as a former goalie myself, I think you have to be the fittest guy on the team. And also have to be the best soccer player on the team a lot of the time. So, but yeah, it's funny you asked that because we sent out our summer workout plan just yesterday. That went out to all of our committed players and returners. I am not allowed to make them do it, but I'm allowed to suggest that they do it. And when they come in, you know, August 19th, August 20th, when our preseason starts, it will show whether or not they've done the work in the summer. You know, one very typical soccer fitness test is called the Cooper test when you get into preseason. Traditionally, the Cooper test is where you run 2 miles and you have to do it in under 12 minutes. So 6-minute mile time for 2 miles. That's a traditional one. I may or may not use this coming year. We'll see. Not giving anything away for our players, but yeah, that's a big part of. You know, it's a huge part, I would say, actually, and you'll see, especially early season, games will be won and lost based on how many of your players did and did not do the work over the summer. So I think we have a really good group of guys who are going to do that work.
Yeah, I would think, being in shape has got to be paramount to being effective individually as well as collectively. Maybe you're in there for the first half, but the second half, if your team gets gassed, the other team's going to just steamroll you.
Absolutely.
Or you can steamroll them if you're in the team that's in better shape.
That's fitter, and you'll see it a lot of the times, especially in the college level, where there's quite a few substitutions can be made. But even then, the fitter guys come in, and they can go for longer, and they can sprint for longer, and they can basically press your defense. And if you're not ready to deal with that physical challenge, it's going to be really hard for you. So it's massively important. What style of fitness kind of depends on how your team wants to play. There are certainly teams that have their guys in the weight room a lot. We are not really one of those teams. I want our guys to be able to run forever, but I certainly don't want them top heavy. I want them to be able to change directions quickly, sprint, move laterally, change directions, and do it for an extended period of time. We would like to keep our best players on the field for as much as possible.
What's if there is an average size for a soccer player? I've been visualizing. Not that you'd want necessarily really small guys, but you don't need to be, 6'8", and 250. You're not an offensive tackle. You need guys who can be pretty agile.
Yeah, and that all goes back how you want to play. But certainly different positions are going to require slightly different physiques. Traditionally, defenders, particularly the ones who play in the middle, are going to be taller, stronger, still need to be pretty fast, but maybe don't have to have quite the same stamina that one of the center midfielders might have. And they don't necessarily need to be big, but again, that's going to come down to your team style. Certain teams want to outmuscle you and want to be the biggest team, and they keep the ball up in the air and they win headers, and it's really hard for smaller teams to compete with that if they run that style effectively. For my team, I'm not a person who necessarily needs you to be tall or, extremely buff or anything like that, but we do have positions where that is required and is advantageous to have that. But I'm looking personally for guys who know how to play soccer, who are great with the ball at their feet, who want to pass and move and run, and we try to keep the ball on the ground and not make it as much of a physical battle, at least in terms of strength. Physicality.
I would think in today's day and age too is that for a lot of young men that soccer has been from as a youth a primary sport.
Yeah.
Where when I was a kid, I don't believe. It really was. It was almost like a spin-off where the guys that weren't big enough to play football played soccer.
That's right.
Or cross country, but the more primary sport would have been, football, basketball, baseball, the big three, for lack of better words, at the high school level. But I think things have certainly shifted. Lacrosse has certainly picked up a lot of steam, as well as a interscholastic sport and intercollegiate sport.
Yeah, absolutely. You find most players coming to college now are year-round soccer players. Most of them. They're going to play, with their high school teams in the fall, then they're going to go play indoor soccer with their club team in the winter, and then they'll play outdoor with their club team in the spring. Most soccer players do that. Now, we have a few players on our team coming in and returning who played more than one sport, and that can be perfectly fine. One example would be my dad, who we brought up earlier. He didn't play soccer till high school. He was a three-sport athlete, played soccer in the fall, basketball in the winter, baseball in the spring, and ended up playing professional soccer. So, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But generally, you're going to see most kids now started playing soccer when they were small, played every single season of the year, and very rarely do you find many soccer players at the college level who have played too many other sports, which I kind of think is too bad sometimes, because you do see some skills that aren't there, that sometimes you'll see with a kid who maybe played basketball also.
Well, it's getting harder and harder. Now, do you find that you're getting your players, because I've had a lot of athletic directors and coaches that are where you are at the college and high school level in the region. With soccer, your kids are coming out of high schools, or are they coming out of AAU programs? Is there AAU soccer? I mean, like AAU basketball or baseball. I mean, that's it's kind of squashing the sports at the high school level in different levels, or American Legion and baseball. I mean, it just things have changed.
Yes, and that's still happening. When I was in high school, which wasn't too long ago, the other level was Premier. That's generally what we called it. You play for your Premier team, which, there's a bunch around. I played for FSA in Farmington and West Hartford Premier. But now kids are playing, some is still called Premier, but they've got ECNL, they've got MLS Next, they've got all these different leagues. I think trying to fulfill something more like the European model, where players join academy teams at a very young age, and that sort of becomes their life. I think we're trying in this country to do something more similar to that. We can't quite do it because, those kids almost do, their school is a part of, their academy. Everything is, they are training to be soccer players from a very young age over there. And it's why you see, our U.S. national team sometimes, we're working to catch up, but we're still a little behind. But yeah, there's so many different worlds out there. I just tell kids you just need to be playing soccer and try to play at the highest level you can find, and a level that you think is still fun. And
are you getting your kids
fun.
out of public schools? I mean, analogize with Con. I mean,
sure.
Con, a lot of their students, not necessarily just athletes, but they're coming out of prep schools. They're not coming out of public schools.
Sure. Many of ours, I don't have any, I have one incomer from a prep school next year, but other than that, we're all public school.
Yeah.
You can still do things from the public school, but you do see that some kids are choosing not to play soccer for their public schools and starting to play just with their club team all year round, which I think is a little bit of a shame.
The direction of my questioning was, I mean,
Yeah.
but it's not AAU, it's something else, but it's not high school soccer.
Yeah, it's all these different organizations, and they'll change every year. You'll hear of a new, new kind of thing that USA Soccer is trying to come out with. You can clearly see we're still in the infancy phase of figuring out what the correct way of developing talent in this country is, because it changes year to year. It's hard to keep up with, even for me, who is dealing with soccer at all levels, all day, almost every day. I just say, do you play on a soccer team? Okay, okay. Can I see it? Can I see you play on this soccer team? And then we'll evaluate from there. But it's become a real pay-to-play system, unfortunately, and
I think that's in all sports.
For sure. I do think in soccer, you almost have to, because there's not, like with basketball, I think you see kids are able to play pickup basketball everywhere. And sometimes you can find pretty good level just pickup basketball around. It's not that easy to find a pickup soccer game in this country, or just, like you'd see in other countries, a bunch of kids just playing on the streets, and honing their skills playing on a surface like this. And you see that as they develop to adults, their control of the soccer ball is second nature to them. And you see that on the basketball court, I think, a lot of the time with kids who are able to play pickup for fun. They're just able to find that. In this country with soccer, it's really hard to have access to that unless you're able to pay thousands of dollars per session or season, if you will.
Are there camps for the players?
Of course, yeah. I work a couple in the summer. Most of us coaches work some in the summer. Yeah, you can send your kids to summer camps, soccer camps of all varying levels. The ones I run are actually probably a little more focused towards fun. Obviously, we're trying to develop good players, but we're also trying to make them love the game and have fun playing the game and want to come back to soccer camp next year. And you don't see that, I don't think, across the board sometimes.
Well, that's an interesting observation.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm trying to look out into the future and see, you know, as you're 1 year under your belt, I mean, where do you see this program going? I mean, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. I mean, because by, you know, in 4 years or whatever, I mean, these would be all your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm optimistic that we can be competing for GNAC titles, you know, in the coming years. That's my goal anyway. I think we have the facilities to do it. I think we have the location to do it. We're adding a business major this year, which is huge for athletes. A lot of athletes are business majors. And I think, you know, this team can be really special. So our aspirations are sooner rather than later to be competing for trophies.
That's good. Now, regarding the academics, how do these students manage, in season in particular, meeting their classroom obligations and practices, games, travel, especially when there's conflict? I mean, if you're going to be going, you know, to Vermont, I mean, I don't know if that's a day trip or you stay overnight up there. That's as an example. I mean, you're not traveling an hour up to Hartford and back. You're and if these kids have got tests or papers or whatever else they're supposed to be doing, labs for science that may require attention that this sport is interfering with.
Yeah.
How do we handle that on your end?
Sure. So for me, they're students before they're athletes. You know, I think that should be the model at the Division III level. The most important thing about coming to Mitchell is getting your degree. That being said, something that everybody used to say to me, and I don't know if this stat still stands, but they said incoming freshmen who played a fall sport statistically do better in school than those who don't. And I think, again, I'm not sure if that stat still stands, but I can see the logic behind it because your fall semester becomes so regimented. You know, Time management is not. It's not even a thing you can think about because you are going to wake up, you're going to go to class. If you don't go to class, your coach is going to hear about it. So coaches are holding you accountable to attend class. You go to practice in the afternoon. Maybe you have even some classes after that practice. And then you got to go do your homework and go to sleep. And typically, you know, with practice and all those classes, you're pretty tired at that point. So there's not a lot of room for staying up into the wee hours of the morning. But your life becomes very regimented as a college athlete. They are excused for games. So any game day, an email comes out from the department, please excuse these players. They're still expected to make up all the work that they're going to miss, but and that's on them. That's how they need to be accountable. They need to speak with their teachers, their professors, and figure out when they're going to make up that work. If there's a test, they need to figure out when they're going to be able to take that.
I mean, in years going by, I had done some adjunct work at Mitchell, and I would wonder if the students have got to they've got to be pretty. They can't slough off. They've got to understand that their primary responsibility is their academics. I mean, they're not going to, but there ought to be, I would feel, a level of interaction that you would have with the faculty at the school as well. That you know them and they know you. Not that you're in there squeezing them for kids to get by, so to speak, but just so that if a kid needs help or is struggling, that there's a mechanism in place to see that the kid gets the support that's gets them through appropriately.
Certainly. I like to think that we're the first line of that, whether it be study halls with our team, for players who are falling behind, or just meetings with me and our coaching staff just about, all right, how are we going to get this under control? Myself and my coaching staff all went through college and had to juggle, many different factors at that time. So we understand that. One great thing about Mitchell is I think that's one of our strongest things is our student health department. We have the Duquesne Center, which is one of the nicest buildings on campus. So any student that's struggling can walk in there. A bunch of lovely people will greet you and get any sort of help they need, whether it's academic or personal or anything like that. So I think we do a great job of that at Mitchell, but certainly, first line of defense is I'm going to get an email from your professor if you're not showing up to class or you're not doing your homework, and the first meeting is going to be with me. So 90% of the time I would say that's enough, especially if you threaten to take away the thing that they love, which is, their sport. If they want to play, they're going to have to get by in the classroom. So I think it's a pretty cohesive balance there.
I would like to think that at the college level that the maturity of the athletes is such that that they will take their academics seriously, but also that they take their responsibilities with their team seriously, where they're not cutting practice, for instance.
Yeah.
Where perhaps at the high school level sometimes kids can be distracted.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
Maybe I'll take today off. And,
yeah.
I know that some high school coaches, if you don't practice, you don't play, or you don't start, or there's some penalty associated with your digression.
That's the same for us. If you don't practice, especially the day before a game, you're not going to be starting the next day. It's just a policy we have on our team. Our guys seem to understand that and respect that. I can't imagine starting a guy who didn't show up to practice the day before. What would the guy on the bench be thinking? Why is that guy in the game when I showed up yesterday? We try to
disrespectful to their own teammates.
Yeah. It's we try to make sure that doesn't happen and we don't have those issues. And I think we did a pretty good job last year making sure. We didn't have many issues like that, but you do get varying degrees of maturity. Coming into college. Some kids are ready. Ready for it. They already seem like seniors right when they come to you. They're on top of their schoolwork. They've clearly had coaches that hold them to really high standards, similar to that at the college level. And then you have others that haven't developed that yet, and that's something we have to work on. Fortunately, I've got a really great staff with me that we can give players individual attention sometimes. But you need to meet the standards of the team. You need to be accountable and. Particularly with our larger roster next year, I think we're going to be able to do an even better job of that when we have guys that can kind of fill in for your spot if you're not.
Well, hopefully you got some good senior leadership too in your squad, your captains that can help you out.
We do. Not too many seniors next year, but we have a great returning group. And I've told them all spring, you're all leaders next year. We do have 3 captains, but every one of my returners is going to be a leader next year, and I think they're ready for that. So I'm really looking forward to see them doing that.
Who's responsible for when you travel? Is it you as the coach to set up the traveling, or is that the AD's job? Who is there a manager of your team that handles that? Who handles the linens and uniforms and things? Any of that kind of stuff?
It's by committee, I would say. The department sets up our transport, so buses or vans, come. We're all set with those.
And the school has those.
Yes. Well, we have vans, and then we hire buses to come in. So, most games we have a big enough roster next year. We're going to be taking buses to away games. So there will be a bus ready to pick us up, and the school will arrange that for us. In terms of washing things, that's a little bit more on us. I had a team manager last year that helped us out a lot with that. But sometimes, I'm happy to do the laundry. I'm not above that. But myself, my assistants, our captain, some of our players, we try to do that by committee. I'm not one that makes the freshmen do all the grunt work or anything like that. So, it's a family. We all do our part. And sometimes our roles can change a little bit. I'm happy to do laundry every now and again and wash the jerseys for our guys. But yeah, myself and our staff and our team leaders set up the jerseys in the locker rooms ahead of the game. Typically, I'm the one picking out. We usually get pizza on the way home from away games because we like to, figure out where has the best pizza in the region. So I try to look up the best pizza spot in the region, get the pizza order in, make sure we have the kinds of pizza the guys want so they can compare and contrast accordingly. And yeah, it's by committee, but you know, it takes a lot of people to make the program run.
It sounds kind of fun at the same time.
It is fun. It should be fun. It really, you know, that's one of my core beliefs, is that this is a sport. It's something you should be doing for fun. It's not always fun. We have to work hard. You know, it's still a job for me. But at the end of the day, soccer is a game, and it should be fun.
Now, when you, I don't want to harp on this too much, but College spanked you guys pretty good last year.
Did they ever?
I mean, they got more goals than. I mean, you lost 9-0 or nil, I guess is the proper term.
Yeah.
Now, are you able, as the coach, to kind of use this as a learning experience for the team as well as for your staff? This is what we need to strive to be. Yes. We want to be them. We don't want to get the crap kicked out of us every year by them. We want to be that team. We want to be that talented. And to give this is what we need to do. This is how much we need to improve.
Yeah, yeah. It was a fascinating day that day. It was a learning experience for all of us.
You're playing a team that was a defending national champ.
Right, and so we had to be realistic with that. We had a very small roster. We had injuries going into that game, which, you know, not that necessarily we would have, you know, competed much closer, but I think, you know, that didn't help us. We started that game with some of our old tendencies, I would say, some tendencies from the past where we were getting down on each other, really let the first half get away from us. But there was a point in that game at halftime where heads were down. Of course, we were getting beat pretty good at that time. The weather was disgusting. It was a miserable day over at College. But a really beautiful moment happened at halftime when one of our freshmen from Waterford, Jeremy Gibbs was his name, stood up and gave one of the most powerful speeches that anybody gave throughout the year. And just, you know, basically told guys, you got to hold yourselves accountable, and we need to hold our heads up, you know. Whether or not we lose 10, 15, nothing today, you know, we need to respect this team, respect ourselves, and just, you know, go out and give what we have to give here, and can't get down on each other. And it was really one of the highlights of the year. Actually, came at halftime of that game.
Well,
so
that's good.
I'll always remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I recognize that, you know, Cons is an out of conference game, but with as you step into your new league, is the level of competition going to be relatively balanced, or do you have some teams that are kind of leaps and bounds above, or some others that perhaps are kind of, you almost put it in the win column before you show up? Not that you, but you get my drift.
Sure.
I mean,
yeah. There are tiers in the GNAC. No game is a pushover. There's no easy game. But there certainly is an upper echelon of teams. University of St. Joe's, Connecticut won the league last year. They are excellent. Move the ball around. You know, one of the more entertaining teams you're going to find in the region, any division. Just a great brand of soccer. Have a very similar feel to us, coincidentally,
really?
And are able to play a style, you know, that we aspire to play. And that'll be a team that we're looking to compare ourselves to with how we move the ball, how we play. But then you've got St. Joe's of Maine, powerhouse. They went multiple years without losing a game or even getting scored on. I think they went a whole season without allowing a goal until the national tournament. Johnson and Wales, incredible, over in Providence.
so does this league get an automatic bid into the D3 NCAA tournament?
Yes. So.
And do other schools, has there been a history of other schools getting at-large bids?
So it's never happened. The first GNAC at-large bid for any sport came last year with University of St. Joseph's men's basketball, who were number 1 ranked in the country for most of the year, ended up losing the conference final to Albertus Magnus, who is another phenomenal program. So that saw the GNAC get the first at-large bid in my knowledge, ever. Maybe I'm missing something from way back, but I'm pretty sure that was the first at-large bid the GNAC has ever had. So I'm hoping that paves the way for more, maybe an at-large bid here and there in the GNAC, because there are some pretty special teams. But like I mentioned before, I think one key thing is we need to start beating NESCAC teams for that to happen. As I mentioned, the NESCAC is the premier Division III soccer league in the country, and they're all in New England. So they're in our regions, and a lot of us schedule, 1 or 2 games against the NESCAC school every year. So if you start seeing GNAC schools beating NESCAC schools, that's when you can look out for an at-large bid.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Con College program was kicked off years ago by a guy named Bill Lessig, who was my high school biology teacher when I was a freshman at Nowhere High School. So
no way. No way. And look where it is now. I think you had a little hand in that.
Well, he was quite a guy.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of good work. I think he might have coached golf up there too, but I remember him with the soccer.
Nice. Awesome.
But this has been an interesting conversation. I mean, you've got me fired up to want to get on there and watch you guys play.
I can't wait to have you over there, Marty.
I think that'll be fun. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the Mitchell's baseball team. They scheduled to play this weekend.
Yeah,
and,
come out this weekend. Friday should be a great day.
And we should have, I think having this new facility has allowed Mitchell to host this. If we didn't have this, we wouldn't have this tournament here in New London.
Oh, we're so blessed to have our new facility, for every field. I mean, huge thanks to Travis and the baseball team. I think, really put us on a scale that allowed this facility to happen. But it's really special. It helps us get recruits. It's one of the best parts of Mitchell College now, I'd say, is walking behind Yarnell Athletic Center and seeing all those beautiful fields. So I recommend anyone who's never been there come out and maybe watch this weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure. And I'm looking forward to your team's schedule this fall, and it'll be a lot of fun. And follow you, and also to bring you back on to the show here at some point down the road, and we'll do a little bit of a check and see how things are going. You're meeting expectations, and how the team is performing, and I'm looking forward to it.
Hopefully, we're talking about a lot of wins.
Well, I suspect you're going to do better than you did last year, and you've got some of your own guys, and it should be, I think, a good experience for you guys. It'd be nice to get the community behind not just Mitchell, but all 3 of the local schools. Community support is not as strong as I would personally like to see. I wish we'd get more people that would follow all the schools. And geez, for the most part, D3 it's free. I mean, there's no charge to come out and watch the young men and women play.
Yep.
And the quality of play is good and competitive, and it's good.
Yeah, I hope we get some more people coming around. I think some people don't know we're all the way in the south of New London. Sometimes people don't go down there, but
sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, listen, our time has run its course. I want to thank you for carving out an hour to spend with me and on City Focus. And good luck this coming season, and we'll look forward to future success.
Thanks, Marty. It was my pleasure.
Okay, folks, you've been watching City Focus, and we'll see you again next week. Good night.